I took a hefty pay cut. Follow your dreams and run off into the sunset. I hate it entirely. Do not burn bridges. I felt just really guilty. You're gonna have to quit your current job, obviously. So be firm, but be polite, be thankful, be respectful. Yeah. Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. It feels like a long time since I have done any kind of sit down video where I'm just like talking to y'all, and so this feels good. I like filming these videos. But I'm really glad that you're here. I'm really excited for today's video. Hopefully by the title you know we're talking about making career changes. Before we get into it though, if you are new here, if this is the first video that you ever watched of me, hello, I'm glad that you're here. My name is Abby. I not very long ago graduated with an engineering degree and went into the engineering workforce, worked for a great company, but came to the conclusion that engineering, that industry, and that whole career path really wasn't for me. Ended up through a lot of decision making and processing and lots of conversations, ended up deciding that I wanted to transition into the field of education. And so I am now working as a paraprofessional at a high school to get some experience while I finish up my certification, and then hopefully next fall I will be in my own middle school math classroom. And so obviously going from engineering to education, it's a huge jump. I think for a lot of people when it comes to making a career transition, just kind of trying to figure out the logistics of like, okay, how do I do this? What do I do? Kind of the logistics of everything can feel really overwhelming. And so my goal in this video is to really speak to everyone. I really want this to hopefully be helpful and apply to people of all kinds of walks of life, no matter where you're working. I hope that this will be helpful for you and maybe just answer some questions that you've wondered about how to make a career transition. I'm not an expert. I'm only 23. I don't have all the wisdom in the world, but I have just made a really big jump. I'm really happy. It was obviously hard and difficult, but there were things that I did that I feel like made it smoother than it could have been. And so I kind of want to share those things with you guys. So with all that said, let me take a breath, have my little beverage. I have a lot of notes in my lap. I will be looking at those because I really want to make sure that I get all of this information to you guys. The sections I'm kind of breaking this down into is when to make a career transition, how to kind of process through that and decide whether or not you really feel like it's time to make one. 2 is how to do that, so kind of step-by-step things to think about or things that you will need to do to kind of make that happen. Then we're gonna do, thirdly, a Q&A portion. I asked some of you on Instagram if you guys had any questions about making a career transition, and I got some really good questions from y'all, and so I am going to be reading through those and answering those. And then at the very end, I am going to do kind of a teacher-specific section. So if you're in a different career field and you're thinking you want to transition into education, that section is for you, kind of talking about logistics of how to do that. Obviously, I know a lot of the people watching this don't want to be educators. That's totally fine. So I wanted to put that section at the end, so then if we get through all the rest of it and you're like, great, I could care less about being a teacher, you can click off and go on with your day. But I will be putting these timestamps in the comments. I'll pin it to the top of the comments, so if there's only one section you really care to hear, you can just click on that timestamp, go straight there, click off, enjoy the rest of your day. With that said, let's just get into it. I feel like I've already been talking for a long time, but let's get into it. So first section, when to make a career transition. How do we process through that? That's a very good question and it's different for everyone, but I think there are 3 main categories in terms of like evaluating your career or the career path that you're on that can be really helpful. Those 3 categories that we kind of broke down that we feel like kind of characterize a career path are time, talent, and treasure, and I'm gonna explain what those things are. So time, that refers to like work-life balance. Are you happy with it? Are you not? Is it healthy? Is it not? Second one is talent. So talent refers to the giftings that you have, is where you're at, really catering, you feel like, to your talents and how you feel like you can really contribute somewhere, or how you want to contribute. This can also encompass, are you making an impact in maybe a place that you really want to, or are you feeling like you're not having as much impact? And then the last one is treasure, and the obvious side of treasure is finances and salary and how much money that you're making, which is very important. This can also refer to treasure that's in the form of relationships, or again, making an impact in a part of the world or a part of the community that you feel like really matters to you in terms of what you do for a job and for a career. And so treasure can be both financial and kind of more emotional and spiritual, if that makes sense. And so in a perfect world, we would kind of want to optimize all of them, right? And kind of all have them at the same level. I'm like optimizing my time, I'm optimizing my talent, so I feel good about my work-life balance. I feel good about how my talents are being used and how I'm making an impact, and I feel good about how I'm being compensated for that. However, a lot of the time that's not the case. So something to really think about, and whenever we look at these three categories, is there one that matters to me more than another? Could I sacrifice one of these to make more room for the other one to grow? And that's something that I feel like we all have to kind of evaluate in ourselves. For me, at my job, my financial treasure, I was making good money. But in terms of my talent and feeling like my giftings were really being used, or I was making the impact that I really wanted to make, I felt like that was really suffering. For me, I realized I am much more willing to sacrifice kind of the monetary side of things in order to feel like I'm having more impact. And so for me, that was a big part of what led me to going into education. And so asking yourself, which one of those categories do you feel like is the most important, or which one do you feel like is lacking the most in your job right now, and is that something that's a deal breaker for you? Could you make that shift in your job right now through a simple conversation with your boss, or is a bigger shift needed? For me, with the engineering industry, I just realized it really wasn't for me, and that a bigger shift needed to be done in order to kind of bring my categories back into a place where I felt like my career was on the right path. So hopefully that was helpful. Time, talent, treasure. I felt like it was really helpful for us, kind of clear and concise, and something that you could even like kind of graph out if you're really analytical and tangible and like to see things written out on paper. Anyways, the next category is how. So say you go through the whole win thing and you're like, okay, I know the time is now. I really want to start researching and making a career transition. How do I do that? And number one on my list is research. Research, research, research. I feel like sometimes research is this like ambiguous word that sounds very like has no real substance. All research means is Google stuff. If you feel like, hey, I think I might actually want to do this, but I don't really know what this is or what this certain career path looks like, Google it. Look up Reddit like threads. Like people post so much stuff about their experiences on Reddit. My husband is about to go to grad school starting in January, and he found the program that he decided that he wanted to do and really confirmed it by finding like Reddit articles and threads that people who had been through the program were posting and having conversations about, and that was like super helpful for him. So Google, Reddit, YouTube, y'all. YouTube is so helpful. I cannot tell you how many YouTube videos I watched on people who were teachers. And I'm not talking about like the cutesy classroom setup videos. I watched some of those, they were fun. But like there's so many awesome teachers and other people in different professions who talk about the real stuff in terms of what a career actually entails. So I was watching videos on like classroom management, how they organize their classroom, how they differentiate their instruction, just to make sure that I understood like the nitty-gritty of what I was actually getting myself into. I will link some of my favorite, for any of you teacher friends out there or people who are wanting to be teachers, I will link some of my favorite YouTubers down below who I found very helpful for me in watching during my process. YouTube is amazing, and kind of on that same line, documentaries. Y'all, there's so many documentaries out there now. There's documentaries on anything and everything. See if there's a documentary about maybe the line of work that you're thinking of going into and watch it. Just getting as much information as you can about something to make sure that you understand the full picture. Because it's easy, especially if you're not in an industry that you enjoy, it's easy to romanticize what doing something else could look like. Romanticizing that like isn't actually reality. It might not line up with what that actually is. And so
do your research.
The next thing is maybe try to look at getting some experience, and you don't necessarily have to quit your job to do that. It could look like picking up a part-time job. I really thought about staying with my firm and being a substitute teacher. I had every other Friday off at the firm that I worked at. I was gonna use every other Friday that I had off to sub at different schools around me. So it could look like a part-time job or a side hustle, depending on what field you are trying to get into, or it could look like quitting your job, and we're gonna talk about that in a second, how to do that. Or it might look like getting an interim job, or even going back to school. School also counts as experience. For me, what I ended up doing was getting an interim job. So I decided to become a paraprofessional. I took a hefty pay cut. That's definitely something to think about if you end up getting an interim job or a part-time job or jumping into something straight from your other career field. You're paying on the front end to get the experience that you need in order to maybe move up later. And that's something that you have to evaluate on your own. Is it worth it for me to take a pay cut for this, either permanently or just part-time? For me, my hefty pay cut, it's only for a year long, because I'm only gonna have this job for a year. And so for me, even though it pained me a little bit, for me it's totally worth it for the experience. And with that, you might need to look at your budget. That's something I said you need to think about if you're gonna take a pay cut. Definitely look at your budget. If you have a spouse or a partner who you share finances with, that will be a conversation that y'all need to have to make sure that financially y'all can make it work. And we definitely had to rearrange our finances. We've definitely had to tighten up our budget in general and be a little bit more frugal, but honestly, it's been totally worth it. And that's really what it comes down to is it gonna be worth it for you? And then finally, quitting your job. So let's talk about that because I had no idea how to do it. I was terrified. I hate letting people down. I hate it entirely. If you come to the decision that you want to get an interim job or you want to jump straight into the other career field that you're thinking of going into, you're gonna have to quit your current job, obviously. And the thing that I want to stress is it is so important to quit your job gracefully. Do not burn bridges. Repeat after me. Do not burn bridges. Don't do it. There's no point in it. The world is so small, and especially if you're still gonna be working in the same city, even if it's in a completely different industry, you have no idea when your paths might cross with an old coworker or an old boss again. Also, on a human level, there's no need to dishonor people or be disrespectful. Even if you feel like you're in a position where maybe you feel like you haven't been treated well at your job, make it to where they don't have any proof that you were a bad employee. They don't have any reason to speak poorly of you about you leaving the company, because you just never know. You never know, and also you want to be a nice person. For me, what this process looked like, just getting very, very practical applications. Quitting your job gracefully. 1, I wrote a resignation letter. I showed it to my husband for him to kind of proofread, and I sent it to my sister-in-law. She had been through the process of quitting a job and kind of got their feedback before I just sent it out. So don't write a resignation letter or email in haste or in a state of emotion. Make sure that you get feedback from other people on how it looks and how it reads and how it comes across, because while you don't need to disclose every detail of why you're leaving, you want it to be polite and you want to express your thankfulness, because at the end of the day, they did give you a job. They hired you and they've been paying you for the last however many months or years. So I would definitely recommend getting some feedback on your resignation letter. Definitely leave the door open for further conversation. Be honest, but you don't owe them every single detail of why you decided to do something. I think you will be surprised at how many people will respect you for just being honest and saying, I just really don't think that I'm in the right place for me, and I respect this company and these people so much, but I feel like I need to make a transition. You would be surprised like the amount of respect that people will give you just for saying that, because honestly, it's scary. And a lot of people wish that they could transition out of the career that they're in, but they don't, because it's scary, or because they feel like they already made their decision and now they have to stay, or they waited too long and now they feel trapped by bills or by, family obligations and things like that, where it's hard for them to switch. And so I would just encourage you, like, be honest, and I think you'll actually find that a lot of people will be really inspired and really respect you for your decision. And then after that, obviously, it'll be up to you having a conversation with your current place of work, with how that transition is gonna go. I would encourage you to try to be flexible and work with them, because that is also going to contribute to kind of leaving off on good terms whenever you leave. But also, you have no obligation to stay past what you are comfortable with. So if they're wanting you to stay longer than what you're comfortable with, then you totally have the right to say, I'm so sorry, but I really need to be transitioned out by this date. So be firm, but be polite, be thankful, be respectful, and do not burn bridges. Don't do it. There's no point. Okay, so now that we've gotten through kind of the when and the how to make a career switch, I am going to go to the Q&A portion. And so these were just some questions that I received from you guys on Instagram. I'm gonna take a drink. I feel like I've been talking for ages. Okay. So, first question, do you have any tips for going into a new industry that you may not have experience in? I feel like I touched on this a little bit with the getting experience part. Yeah, that's the thing. You have, in a lot of cases, and this is what happened to me, you might have to be willing to take a pretty hefty pay cut, at least for a short amount of time while you get that experience, because you're kind of paying your dues up front since you didn't get the education for it or the certificate for it in the past, or whenever you were in college, or before, whatever. So there's that. Also, talking to people in your life who are in the field that you think that you might want to be in. This is actually so important, and I can't believe I didn't mention it before. So my mom was an educator for a long time, so that was pretty easy. I could talk to her. But also there are other people in my life that work in different areas of administration, or who have also specifically taught math. My mom was an English teacher, so that doesn't apply. It's so funny, the way that I believe God lines up things for us so early on in our lives. Someone who is a huge resource for me, and still is, as I'm going through this school year and will be transitioning again into being a teacher instead of a paraprofessional, was actually my first ever ice skating coach. And afterwards, she ended up going into education, and she ended up just being incredible, just kind of putting me on this path that I didn't even really know existed. I didn't know what a paraprofessional was really before talking to her, and I didn't know that was an option for me before talking to her. And so you just might be surprised about the way that people have already been lined up in your life in order to help you kind of navigate big decisions that you'll make. And so use those resources, use those people that God has put in your life. There might be opportunities for experience that you don't even know about, but that other people do. The second question was, did you have to save up money before making a career transition? For me personally, no. I will say that Aaron and I do live pretty frugally, like we already did beforehand. We're not big spenders. We're really trying to save up as much money as we can in this season of life. When we're married, we're living in an apartment, we don't have any kids. So we already were saving pretty aggressively, I would say. But we didn't end up being in a position where we had to save up money specifically so I could make this transition, if that makes sense. Now, I know that for other people, that's not the case, and so that's where I would probably recommend seeing if there's a way for you to get either a part-time job or a side hustle that will help you get maybe some experience while you're still able to stay at the job that you currently work at, if that is an option for you. I personally would love to sit here and tell you to just follow your dreams and run off into the sunset and not worry about money, but money is important and we should be wise with it. And so definitely not advocating for y'all to put yourself in a place where you are going to go into debt or where you don't have enough financial stability in order to make a career change right now. I do think that there's ways to still incorporate maybe aspects of a new career field that you might want to go into while you stay at your current job. So that's what I'll say on that. Next question was, how do you feel not using your degree or whatever you went to school for? So, and I have a lot of things that I could say on this. I could probably make an entire video dedicated to this question and how we should think about why we go to school or why we go to college and gaining a lot more there than just a piece of paper with a specific subject field on it. At the beginning, I struggled a lot because I felt just really guilty about, why didn't I see this sooner? Why didn't I change my major in college to something else? Just this all shoulda, woulda, coulda. I, should have made this other decision. What if I had done this? Like, it can just make you feel really bad about yourself. And I will say, like, there were days and weeks where I felt that. I feel like I've come to a place where I have just realized that, like, every event in season in my life, and I believe in everybody's life, has a purpose. And so I can look back on my days in college and my days studying all night, for engineering exams and realize, wow, I had some really sweet friendships come out of that, or had some really sweet relationships. Or my work ethic grew so much in that season because of how hard I had to work. Or just different opportunities that came up, people that I've met even at my previous company. I have no idea what those relationships might turn into. I have no idea, I have dreams of wanting to bring people who work in STEM into classrooms, even starting in middle school. And so I already know that I have so many great connections of people who can do that, who have already said yes, please call me, I want to come, and I would love to talk to your class. I just believe that there is a higher power that is orchestrating everything to where it will have a purpose, and nothing that we do will ever be for nothing. And for me, that's a really comforting thought and a really comforting place to come to. So I hope that kind of answered that question. The last question was, are you happy with your decision? And the answer is yes. I am so happy. I love my job as it is right now. It's been so fun, and I feel like I am learning so much, and it just makes me even more excited for being a whole teacher in my own classroom. And so I am so happy with my decision. So that is it for the Q&A portion. I'm gonna move into kind of the teacher specific portion now. So if this doesn't apply to you, bye. I hope that you enjoyed it. But if this does apply to you, feel free to stick around for just a few more minutes. But I kind of wanted to go through, if you are watching this because you think you might want to transition into education, let's talk about that. So chances are, if you're transitioning into education, you do not have a degree that is in any kind of field of education. That is what I am assuming. Everything that I'm about to say, it only applies to Texas. I honestly don't know a lot about other states, so I'm sure there's other videos on YouTube or things that you can Google for that, but I am specifically speaking to Texas. The way in Texas that it works is if you have a degree, period, it doesn't matter what it's in, you can go through an alternative certification program, and that's what a lot of people do, and that is what I am also doing. There's a lot of different programs out there. I'm personally doing one through an organization called Teachworthy. They're awesome. I'm not gonna super hard promo them in this video because I feel like I could do a whole other video on them as well. There's Texas Teachers of Tomorrow that's really big. There's other programs that you can do, but it's all essentially the same. What you'll have to do is you'll have to go through your alternative certification program coursework. And while doing that, you will most likely take your content exam somewhere during doing that coursework. Your content exam is subject specific, so whatever you decide, and TEA has put some guidelines on this now, where you have to have some prerequisites from your previous education. So I can't tell you what you qualify for. You'll have to look that up, but your content exam is subject specific. So whatever you choose to get certified in, that is what your content exam is over. So my content exam is essentially a giant math test. If you're in English, want to be an English teacher, your content exam will be a giant English test, basically. And so that's 2 parts of the puzzle. The third part is the PPR. That is basically a teaching methodologies test. So it's more about making sure you know what differentiated instruction looks like, kind of some awareness of the developmental stage of students, and things like that. I have not taken the PPR, so I might have just done a really bad job of kind of explaining it, but think more teaching methodologies, making sure you understand learning styles, instructional tools. That is what that test is about. In terms of alternative certification programs, that is the 3 pieces of the puzzle: doing your coursework, doing the content exam, and doing the PPR. Your coursework only includes observation, which is why I decided to get a job as a paraprofessional, or was considering other kind of side jobs to get actual experience, because with an alternative certification program, you don't get any student teaching, which means you don't get the experience, the in-class experience that student teachers get. The only thing that you get is observation time, which means basically you're gonna go and sit in the classroom and watch the teacher, but you're not interacting really with the students or the teacher, which is good, but I wanted some more hands-on experience personally. So that's kind of a judgment that you can make for yourself. I will say, I know that there are other things that you can do. I have a friend on YouTube, her name is Kayla. She also has a YouTube channel. I will link her video down below. She made a video talking about her process, and she was able to go back to her university that she graduated from, and they had a student teaching program. I don't know which universities have it. I don't really know anything about student teaching programs, but basically she's going through like the student teaching portion of what people with an education degree go through at the end of their coursework. And so that's also an option if you went to a university or you know of a university who has a student teaching program. That could be an option for you. If you have questions about that, maybe direct them to her though, because I personally don't really know a lot about that, but she's super sweet. You could probably DM her on Instagram. Kayla, if you're watching this, sorry if I'm like I'm like telling people to like just go message you and ask you questions, but she's awesome. Like I said, I'll link her video down below of her process talking about how she made her own career transition, because she went from a different industry and is transitioning into education. So we're birds of a feather, we flock together. The last thing is you could do a master's program. I've heard of a lot of other people on the teacher YouTube community talk about this. That's also something to look into. If you're like, you know what, I'll just go back to school, getting your master's in education is a great option. That's what my mom ended up doing. She got her undergrad. She was actually a theater major, and ended up switching kind of at the last minute and getting her English degree, and then just went to grad school and got her master's in education. And so that is also an option if you just want to go back to school and not do the alternative certification route. It is totally your call. But with all of that said, I believe we are done with this video. And so I feel like I have been talking for literally an hour. I'm scared to know how much footage this is, and hopefully it wasn't too rambly, but I hope that all of those things were helpful for you guys. If you are thinking about changing careers and you just want to talk to somebody about it who has done it or who has shared in your concerns and in your worries and in your indecisiveness, feel free to connect with me on Instagram. You can always DM me on there. I would love to talk to you, or feel free to leave a comment below and I will try to answer any questions that you have that maybe I didn't answer in this video. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye.